Hello, everybody. We still have a few minutes until we start, and we'll be starting just exactly at 10:30. Thank you for joining today. We'll be starting in just another moment. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome for joining today. A couple things before we get started. There will be time for questions at the end, but don't feel like you need to wait until then to put in your questions. Post your questions in chat as soon as you have them so you don't have to worry about remembering them. If you're having any technical difficulties, just note that in chat also. That will be monitored. Before we start, let me share just a very little bit about Abudi Consulting Group and myself. Abudi Consulting Group focuses on working with medium to large global organizations with a focus on people, projects, and process. We've developed the IP to over 60 workshops and consult primarily in the areas of human resource support and talent management, 360 assessments, coaching, change management, process improvement, and developing and evaluating project management offices. As it relates to emotional intelligence, let me share a little bit about my background. I work with organizations to help them recruit for emotional intelligence strength, to coach individuals who are high potentials, as well as managers and leaders in strengthening their emotional intelligence. I also deliver workshops tailored for individual contributors through to leaders to help them understand more about the value of emotional intelligence in the workplace. This particular session today is based on my workshop on leading with emotional intelligence. Now let's get started. The goal for our time together is to focus on the value of strengthening our emotional intelligence to more effectively communicate, collaborate, and reduce and manage conflicts. We're going to focus on 4 key areas of emotional intelligence. For each area we discuss, I will share a handful of strategies to work on that particular area of emotional intelligence in order to strengthen it. As a thank you for attending, everyone on will be sent a handout with additional information about each of the 4 key areas, as well as how to develop your own skills in that particular area. The ability of an individual to perceive, manage, express, understand, and use one's emotions in a positive and enriching way is broadly classified as emotional intelligence, which you will hear me refer to as either EQ or EI as we talk today. The term was originally developed by Salovey and Meyer and popularized by Goleman. We're going to talk more about these two models next. Emotional intelligence has a higher impact on success in an organization than our IQ does. High IQ does not necessarily equal high EQ. Cognitive intelligence, or IQ, is not very flexible and is fixed at birth. Emotional intelligence, however, is flexible and is based in part on our personality or style. We can strengthen our emotional intelligence. Strong emotional intelligence enables us to collaborate as part of a team, manage through conflicts, push through adversity, communicate effectively, engage employees in the workforce, and manage a diverse workforce. The first model we're going to talk about is the mixed model, which was developed by Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman defines EQ as an array of skills and characteristics that drive leadership performance. He believes people can understand each other better by increasing the awareness of their emotions. His 5 EQ competencies include self-awareness, which is the ability to be aware of our own feelings and emotions, and understanding where we're strong and where we need to develop further. Self-regulation, also called self-management, is the ability to control our impulses. It's the ability to handle our emotions and thus remain calm under stress or when we're in conflict. Social skills is our ability to get along with others, work better in a team, and manage conflicts. It means we're confident and good, strong communicators. Empathy is our ability to understand another's point of view. And our motivation is our ability to persevere and persist even when odds are stacked against us. It enables us to set goals and work toward achieving them. The ability model was developed by Salovey and Meyer in the early 1990s. Their model focuses more on the individual and the individual's ability to process emotional information and use that information to navigate their environment. So perceiving emotions is our ability to understand nonverbal signals around emotions and feelings. Reasoning with emotions promotes thinking based on reason rather than emotions. So we make decisions based on reasoning. This is not to say that emotions don't go into decisions, but we recognize the emotional part of our decision, and then we use reasoning to make the best decision. Understanding means that we realize emotions carry many meanings, and we strive to understand those meanings when we see emotions displayed in others. And then managing is the same as self-regulation. That means we regulate our own emotions to respond appropriately to others. We are going to look at these 4 key areas of emotional intelligence. These are not in conflict with either Goleman or Salovey and Meyer. So we're going to talk about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Let me talk about each of these in a nutshell, and then we'll go further into them during this webinar. So the first is our personal competence. That's what I see. And self-awareness occurs when we're able to accurately observe, evaluate, and exhibit the appropriate emotions. In self-management, we guide our emotions in a positive way. When we have that, I'm going to say mastered, but mastered isn't the right term really, because we're always strengthening our emotional intelligence. We move to social competence, which is what I do. And social awareness happens when I'm able to understand the way others feel, when I recognize and can manage the emotions of others when collaborating or communicating with them. And then relationship management occurs when can I use my skills in self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness to build relationships with others that are supportive and mutually beneficial. These 4 core areas we're going to talk about enable individuals to manage their emotions in a positive way. We're all controlled by our emotions. We can't not have them. But our ability to manage them enables for professional and personal success. And that's what we want to focus on when we think about emotional intelligence and leading effectively. Goleman identifies 18 specific leadership competencies. These competencies on this slide are mapped to the key competencies we're going to talk about, the 4 key areas. Leaders who are more emotionally intelligent create positive work environments, work more effectively across the organization, create better collaboration, and build trust among employees and leadership. Harvard Business Review, by the way, hbr.org, has some great videos on EI and leadership, including a number of videos by Goleman. You can also find those videos on YouTube. Simply search Goleman and emotional intelligence. The handout you're going to receive will explore these 18 specific leadership competencies a little bit more further for you. Let's talk about the first one, self-awareness. To identify our emotional strengths and development areas, we have to be aware of and understand and recognize our own emotions. Our emotions affect not just us and the decisions we make, but affect those around us. Self-awareness enables us to see how an emotion is influencing our thought process. As we increase our self-awareness, we can step back and look at our thoughts and feelings and do a better job understanding them and understanding how they impact how we work with others and how we make decisions. People who are self-aware are open to honest feedback from others. They appreciate and seek out various perspectives, so they realize they don't know it all or have all the answers. They learn from experiences in order to improve in the future, so that makes them a continuous learner. When we have self-awareness, we also realize that we are always strengthening our emotional intelligence. Increasing self-awareness is the foundation for improving emotional intelligence overall. We can't possibly be good at any of the other 4 key areas we talk about unless we are strong at self-awareness. Some strategies, and again, the handout you'll receive via email will further flesh out these strategies for you. In order to improve self-awareness is to understand what happens when we're having an emotional outburst. I know for me, I can get a little sweaty. My heart races. I get tense. I can recognize it. We have emotional reactions before we even truly recognize it. So you want to understand what happens when you're having an emotional outburst. We also want to know what or who pushes our buttons, sort of the triggers. Keeping a journal is a great way to understand your, to become more aware of your emotions. One of the handouts you'll receive is an emotion chart, and that is a great tool and has been very effective for me and also in coaching leaders and executives who need to develop their emotional intelligence. When you receive the chart, take a day and every 15 minutes, or if that seems too much, 30, but no more than 30, note how you are feeling at a particular time. When I coach individuals in strengthening their emotional intelligence to help them become more aware of the roller coaster of emotions we go through in one day alone, I have them set a timer, and every 15 to 30 minutes, I have them jot down on the chart how they're feeling and then document why, what happened to make them feel that emotion at the moment. This is a great way to really understand the emotions we feel in any given day. Another part of self-awareness is recognizing that feelings are not good, they're not bad, they're not negative, they're not positive. They're just feelings, they're just emotions. Look at them as being just generally emotions. Don't label them as good, bad, negative, or positive. Because when we do that, then we try to squash some feelings and not others, and we don't want to do that. We want to be aware and manage all of our feelings. Once we're aware of our feelings, now we can learn how to manage those feelings. We can choose how we respond in any situation, even the most stressful, when we learn self-management or self-regulation. We want to pay close attention to how we think and feel to be able to self-manage behavior. Self-management, therefore, requires self-awareness of our emotions first. It enables us to keep negative reactions under control. It means we can manage stress better, we make better decisions, and we don't overreact. Self-management as a best practice, when faced with a difficult decision or a difficult situation, take time to think about it, which enables us to get our emotions under control. We're therefore able to respond more effectively. Rarely do we need to make a decision immediately. To be fair, there are situations when that has to happen, but rarely do we need to do decision making immediately. We can take time to use our rational mind to make decision. So some strategies for self-management is count to 10. I know it sounds silly, but it works. Also, use our rational mind to make decisions, not emotions. So when I have to make a decision, that's a pretty complex decision and could have ramifications if I make the wrong decisions. One of the things I like to do when I coach people to do is to write down all the emotional reasons why I want to make a specific decision. Once I have that written down, it effectively clears your mind. And now I can use my rational mind to make decisions. Now I write down all the rational reasons why I should make that decision. And now I'm more likely to make a better decision. Also, schedule your day. Sometimes our emotions get the better of us because we just have so much going on and we're feeling pressure from people who report to us, peers in the workplace, or our boss. If we schedule our day to get done the more complex task at a better time of day for us to do that, for me, that tends to be early morning because I'm a morning person, we then enable for some time where we can work on problem solving, right? So schedule in problem solving when you need to. Let's talk about social awareness. Again, we need self-awareness and self-management before we can have social awareness. Social awareness requires listening to others and observing their reactions as we talk and interact with them. This includes paying attention to body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice. So some strategies to think about social awareness and improve upon it is to pay attention and listen to people. Really actively listen. We all listen, but we don't actively listen. So by that I mean, when we actively listen, we are paying attention to that individual. We're listening to the words they're saying, and we're listening and watching to see if their body language, their facial expressions are in sync with the words that are coming out of their mouth. We dig a little bit deeper effectively. We are not thinking about what our rebuttal is going to be. We are not thinking about what we're going to have for dinner, where we're going to go to lunch, or an upcoming meeting. We are focused on that individual. So one of the things that I learned to do that effectively is sometimes in trying to be very accommodating, we might let people interrupt us when we're in the middle of maybe complex problem solving or working on something that has to get out the door. I now say to people, just give me 10 minutes to finish what I'm doing or however much time you need, right? And then I can devote my time to you. In this way, I know I'm really listening to the person, actively listening to them. Some other strategies is to people watch. It works really well. When I worked in New York City, I loved hanging outside for lunch just so I can people watch. You learn a lot by watching others and their reactions in particular situations. If you travel a lot like I do and you get stuck in airports sometimes, that is a great place to people watch also. Learn how to read the emotions of a room. The next time you go into a meeting, look around the room and try to figure out how people are feeling. And then as the meeting happens, see how well you did in attempting how people are feeling. Take a moment now and try this. Recall a recent incident that was stressful to you. So take a moment and recall a recent incident that was stressful. Now, visualize yourself on the outside as if you were observing from above. As you shift from participant to observer, notice the shift in your emotions. When we're faced with something stressful, step outside of it. Let me share a personal story. A number of years ago, in a past life, as I like to say, I was an emergency medical technician. And as I was training to be an EMT, an emergency medical technician, I did a lot of training within New York City. And one of the things that our trainer had us do is we came upon a stage scene, and there was a lot going on in the scene. And the scene it was a multi-car accident, and there was a little child out in the open road, and it was at night, standing by a car. There was a person, and bear in mind it was a stage scene. There was a person who was injured, wandering around. There was a person injured in a car who wasn't moving, and there was gasoline leaking out of another car. And that was just some of the stuff going on. And our instructor said, "What are you going to do?" And we immediately all started talking. Well, we have to do this, and we have to do this, and we have to do the other thing. And he let us go on for a couple minutes, and then he said, "Stop. You are so entrenched in the situation. You are not making good choices. You're not thinking clearly, and it's going to have a problemsome effect on the scene and on the people you're trying to help." He says, step back, and look at it from above. Now, tell me what you see and what you're going to do. And taking that moment, even in what was a very, you've got to react quickly situation, made a huge difference in kind of managing our emotions. So keep that in mind. A little bit more, and this follows with social awareness, and then we'll talk about relationship management, the fourth key area. But part of social awareness is communicating effectively with emotional intelligence. And the way we do that is by sticking to the point. So communicating what is relevant with a focus on getting the message across as quickly as possible, but in a way that works for the other person. It's also adapting your communication. So adapting your style to meet the other's needs. When we are good communicators and we're good leaders, we don't have one communication style. We don't have one leadership style. We adapt to what the people around us need. It's connecting with others through establishing strong working relationships that enable for more effective communication overall. And it's again using active listening, focus on understanding the other person and what they're saying. And also a little bit about what they're not saying. There are several skills to practice active listening. One is paraphrasing, which I'm sure you all know, and that's restating a message into your own words. So I might say to somebody, so you're trying to determine the best approach to fix the problem. Another is clarification, and that's enabling for vague information to be clearer. If somebody's talking with me, I might say, I believe I understand what you're saying. Can I share what I heard so you can clarify that I have it? In summarizing, we're pulling together a lot of information that someone's sharing into a summary that ensures we understand them. So I might say to somebody, that is some great information. Let me summarize what I heard as the key ideas to be sure I got everything. And primary empathy is to show understanding of the underlying feelings of the speaker. I might say to them, I can tell you're frustrated. Let's talk further. Nonverbal communications enable for understanding the emotions and underlying feelings being expressed by the speaker. Nonverbal communications include things such as facial expressions, hand gestures, space between me and the other person, touch, tone of voice, rate of speech, and pitch of voice. Body language is one of the most important source of clues to how effectively we're communicating with someone and how others are communicating with me. When I am on a teleconference with somebody, I use their tone of voice, their rate of speech, and their pitch of voice to understand how well I'm communicating with them when I can't see them. Through body language, we can spot confidence, defensiveness, whether someone agrees with us or not, whether they comprehend what we're saying, how interested and engaged they are in the conversation. Understanding our own body language enables us to adjust the delivery of our message to better communicate with another person. When we're good at social awareness, we're also good at reducing and sometimes eliminating conflicts using our emotional intelligence. Individuals with social awareness understand the underlying feelings of conflict and use that information to understand the motivation of the other person. Basically, we look beyond the facts and look at the feelings that underlie the conflict to determine the impact of the conflict on the other person. While we want to make decisions based on facts and the rational mind, remember that we cannot ignore the feelings. Consider those feelings and emotions, and we do a better job either avoiding, reducing, or resolving a conflict with someone else. In the last slide with communicating with EI, I talked about primary empathy. Showing primary empathy during conflict is important. It does not mean we agree with someone. I can acknowledge somebody's frustration and their feelings and their anger during a conflict with them without agreeing with it. Remember, although tempting, and we certainly might try because that's human nature, we cannot ignore the feelings and emotions involved in a conflict. In order to resolve a conflict using emotional intelligence, we consider our own needs and wants to arrive at a mutually agreeable or a win-win solution. I know my own needs and wants when I'm in conflict with someone. And the more I know someone else, I may understand their needs and wants. But through conversations with another party, I can certainly learn their needs and wants. Oh, and by the way, I have no problem asking somebody, what are your needs and wants out of this resolution? I will share my own needs and wants and ask them for theirs too. In conflict management, although we're about to talk about relationship management, I'm going to mention it briefly here. In conflict management, here's how we use those 4 key areas. We use our self-awareness skills to understand our own emotions and the triggers, what pushes our buttons. We use our self-management skills to take actions to manage difficult people, to manage our emotions so they don't rile me up. And I use social awareness skills to read the emotional cues of others, which enables me to diffuse conflict situations early on. And I use my relationship management skills to develop strong working relationships and understand how others react in specific situations so I can better manage situations with them and therefore reduce conflict with them. Relationship management is this fourth key area. Individuals who are good in the first three areas of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness, are often good at building and maintaining strong working relationships. Communication is an essential skill in relationship management. It enables us to motivate and engage others, to influence them to take action, and collaborate more effectively within a team environment. Strategies for relationship management include building trust with others, and we build trust when we build relationships with them, communicating in ways that work for others, providing and receiving feedback well, and acknowledging others' feelings. Again, acknowledging feelings doesn't mean we agree with them. Relationship management relies on the other three core areas of emotional intelligence. We use our self-awareness skills to notice our feelings and judge if our needs are being satisfied in a relationship. We use self-management skills to express our feelings and act accordingly to benefit the relationship. And we use our social awareness skills to better understand the other person's needs and feelings in the relationship. I'd like to move now to talking a little bit about how we lead with emotional intelligence, with a focus on coaching employees, hiring, and how to be sort of an EQ savvy leader. When we coach employees to strengthen emotional intelligence, it's beyond a a personal improvement or a performance improvement plan, and it's beyond the carrot or the stick or rewards and punishment. Immediately going to a PIP or rewards and punishment do not work. Coaching employees to strengthen their EI is more about getting them to acknowledge that they need to change. It requires us to understand what's important to that employee and align the value of strong emotional intelligence to what's important. So for the first, when I coach employees, I figure out, or I look at what are the employees' long-term goals, and I'm going to give you an example of this in a moment. What are their long-term goals? What do they want to achieve? And I focus my discussions on how they can help themselves achieve their goals and how they may be getting in their own way. So how their lack of EI or less than stellar emotional intelligence is hindering or will hinder their progress. I ask questions to get them to understand their emotional intelligence. Reflective activities are of value here. So I give them specific examples and ask them reflect back on how that could be done better or how they might have damaged the relationship based on how they behaved. When they recognize the gap between now, their emotional intelligence level now, and where they want to go, I work with them, collaborate with them to develop a plan to get there. So let me give you an example of an individual that I am coaching. We're going to call him Jeremy. Jeremy is a new customer service supervisor in an organization. He recently achieved his MBA. He's intelligent, ambitious, and a great communicator with his manager and other leadership. He is confident he's going to advance in the organization. He's definitely a go-getter, and he's driven to succeed. However, Jeremy has a problem. He frequently loses his temper with his staff. He hates it when they don't do what he tells them to do, and he hates it when they don't embrace his ideas and they think they might have a better idea. He feels they don't work as hard as he does, and they could be working harder overall. He doesn't feel they're as smart as he is, and they should take direction from him without complaint or comment because he's the boss. He reacts to everything without hesitation. When I spoke with his manager, he tells me that staff is starting to leave or look for internal opportunities. When I talk with Jeremy, it is apparent that deep down, Jeremy knows this is a problem. He tells me in our first conversation, I'm just not sure I can get it under control. When I talked further and pressured Jeremy a little bit more and gave him some example, he got angry. And he said, you know what? I don't think it matters. Leadership doesn't care. I meet my goals they set, and that's all that matters to them. When Jeremy talks about leadership, he's not talking about his direct manager. He's talking about above his direct manager. In this situation, Jeremy is aware he doesn't care enough to manage it. One of the things his manager and I have done was to get leadership above Jerry's manager to see the negative side of Jeremy's style and the potential future impact on meeting goals and on retention of employees. We now have their feedback that they are very interested in fixing the situation, and they stand behind Jerry's manager, which is what we need them to do. What we don't want is to Jeremy to do an end run. We also know that Jeremy is interested in succeeding. He wants to move ahead into other leadership roles. We are using that information to focus Jeremy on how he is potentially impacting his own goals. I am going to take a moment, since we have some time, to answer one question that just came in because it's directly related to what I was just talking about regarding coaching employees. So the question is, what models or how do I coach employees to improve emotional intelligence? So the model that I use is called the GROW model, G-R-O-W. It requires the employee to take ownership. So it puts the ownership on me of fixing a problem and puts it on the employee. GROW is an acronym. The G stands for goal, the R for reality, the O for options, and the W for way forward. So once I set a goal with an employee that's linked to a goal they want, then we look at their reality. How close are you to achieving that goal? What are your options to achieve it? And what is your way forward? What are you going to do, and what does timing look like? You can Google the GROW model, G-R-O-W, and find all the information you need about it. The GROW model uses questions in order to prompt a conversation with the employee. And if you Google it, you'll find a ton of questions you can ask for each letter of the acronym. The other thing I use is the emotion chart, which again you will receive as a PDF as a thank you for attending. That's a valuable exercise for employees to go through also. So thank you very much for that question. I wanted to squeeze that in so it was directly relevant to what we were talking about here. Now let's talk a little bit about hiring for emotional intelligence strength. When I work with organizations to help them recruit and hire for EI, I have found that asking behavioral type questions and reference check conversations really help in understanding EI. Of course, without a doubt, you don't fully get to know someone until they begin to do work within the organization, but you can make a solid hire by doing some due diligence. For example, let me give you a question for each of the 4 key areas we've been talking about. For self-awareness, I might ask a candidate to tell me about a time they were surprised about a negative impact their behavior or words had on a coworker or a customer. How did they learn that information? What did they do with it once they learned it? For self-management, I'm going to ask them to tell me about a time when they strategically planned a particular conversation so that they could get the best result. For social awareness, I'm going to ask them to share with me a time when someone in the workplace said something, but their tone and expression did not match the words they were speaking. What did they do? How did they handle it? And for relationship management, I asked them who are 2 or 3 key people with whom they must interact to get things done. And I asked them to describe their relationship with each of those people. These are behavioral interviewing questions, and they do a good job of understanding individuals' emotional strength. When I do reference checks, I ask very probing questions to really learn more about how an individual handled themselves in the organization. Let's talk about being an EQ savvy leader. EQ or EI savvy leaders have a flexible leadership style. Look at it from the perspective of servant leadership. A servant leader focuses on the growth and well-being of their employees. Servant leaders push leadership down to the lowest levels, effectively sharing their power and put the needs of employees first, thereby keeping employees engaged in the workplace. Their goal is to enable people to perform at their best. As you can imagine, an individual with low EI is unlikely to have servant leadership qualities. As an EQ savvy leader, we approach situations in a values-driven way. Our values inform the choices that we make and the interactions that we have with others. For example, if I value teamwork and collaboration with others, then I focus on engaging with individuals in a collaborative, teamwork-focused way. I have found that more and more organizations, as part of their high potential identification, as part of their succession planning, as part of their hiring, either internally or externally, of executive leadership, the focus is on emotional intelligence. The best organizations have individuals at the helm who have strong emotional intelligence and interact effectively across the organization. Let me respond to one other question that's sort of relevant to this that just came in. The question is, are there particular industries focusing more on emotional intelligence than others? That's a very good question. We work across a variety of industries. I think some industries have been focusing on emotional intelligence a little bit longer than others. In particular, I see that in service type industries. I know, for example, that I worked at McKinsey and Company many, many moons ago, and we were very focused on emotional intelligence with leaders when I was at McKinsey and Company. I think I'm starting to see a little bit more of it in manufacturing. That doesn't mean that every manufacturing company is sort of behind. That is absolutely not the case. But I am working recently with a manufacturing company now that is very focused on getting their leadership team in general to be stronger in their emotional intelligence. And I think this is coming about because traditionally they've had more baby boomers within the organization, and they're getting a lot more millennials in there now. So emotional intelligence is becoming a little bit more important for the organization, so they're starting to focus. But I would say every industry focuses more now on emotional intelligence. Again, it's been around a while, but with Daniel Goleman, he's really popularized the term and put more of a focus on it. We are near wrapping up. What I'd like you to do, in a moment, I'll get to some additional questions and any other questions you might have. Before that, though, consider how you might apply what you learned in today's webinar back in the workplace. How might that look? Strengthening your emotional intelligence is absolutely not a once and done skill building. It's a continuous learning process. We are always in new situations or engage with different individuals, and that impacts our emotional intelligence, sometimes in a negative way. By being aware of your emotional intelligence and where your weak spots are, you can better manage any situation or individual. Even today, and I do a lot around emotional intelligence. I'm coaching people, I'm training in it. I come into new situations today that are challenging. The stronger your emotional intelligence is, even if you have a new situation that's challenging, you remain composed in it. And that's what you want to do. You want to remain composed no matter what. So, what are your questions? Again, as a thank you for participating, you will receive via email an emotional intelligence handout that further goes into details from what we discussed today, including more strategies to improve across all 4 key areas. An emotion chart to track your own emotions and use with employees who you might be coaching. And the presentation deck. All of those will be sent to you via email. And I had one other question that came in. Are there any books you would recommend on emotional intelligence for leaders? There are a number of books out there, but personally, more so than books, I have found that the articles on Harvard Business Review are the most valuable. You don't need to subscribe to Harvard Business Review, by the way, to have a paid subscription in order to download and access articles. I believe with a free registration, you can download either 5 to 8, I forget exactly how many articles a month. Harvard Business Review has a 10 must-reads on emotional intelligence that is worthwhile. You can purchase it, and it has a number of articles in there. Daniel Goleman has written a number of books on EI, including What Makes a Leader, Why EI Matters. That's a worthwhile book. And also there are a number of great videos, many by Goleman, on emotional intelligence that you can either access through Harvard Business Review or through YouTube. Are there any other questions that you might have? If so, please post them in the chat. You also have my contact information here. So if you're anything like me, sometimes a question pops up after the fact, or you might have a question after you receive the handouts that'll be provided based on this webinar. You are more than welcome to reach out to me either by email or by phone with any questions you might have. It looks like we may not have any other questions coming in. I want to wish you all a very happy holiday season. Our next webinar will be in January. Please look for the email on that. That will be focused on engaging employees in change within the organization. If you do not receive the email within 24 hours with the handouts, which are in PDFs, please do send an email to me, and then I can make sure you get that information. Again, I want to thank everyone for their time and wishing you all a very happy holiday season. Have a wonderful rest of the day.